It was last Tuesday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, just finished cleaning up after dinner. The lights were warm. The breeze coming in through the slightly cracked window was crisp. Everything about that evening felt calm, uneventful. Then Lana walked in, holding her brown leather notebook and that silver ballpoint pen she always used to jot down her monthly goals. She pulled out a chair and sat across from me, posture straight, eyes sharp, like she was about to present a quarterly earnings report. There was no smile, no small talk. She said we needed to talk about renegotiating the terms of our marriage. I almost laughed. For a second, I pictured a boardroom meeting with pie charts and a projector screen. But Lana wasn't joking, not even close. She flipped open her notebook like she had slides to walk me through, as if this was a deal I needed to prove myself worthy of closing. We've been married 8 years. I always thought our marriage was solid. Not perfect, sure, but stable. We'd had our share of ups and downs, but we faced them like a team. We carried each other through hard seasons, shared the weight, shared the wins. I didn't see this coming. She started listing things she called gaps in the responsibility structure, imbalances in value contribution, and opportunities for relationship model optimization. Every phrase sounded like it came out of a corporate restructuring memo, not from the woman I married. If this were a job offer, I could have politely declined, walked away, and never looked back. But this was my wife, the same woman who once held my hand through winters with no heat, who laid her head on my chest when she was too weak to stand. The woman I thought would talk to me, not try to negotiate terms like I was a liability on a spreadsheet. And there she was, calm voice, steady eyes, ready to persuade me to sign on to a new agreement I never asked for. I just sat there, hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee, saying nothing. That was the night Lana officially announced she wanted to renegotiate our marriage. If you've ever experienced the pain of betrayal, or simply can't look away from shocking twists like these, hit that subscribe button. This channel is where hidden truths finally come to light. Over the next 4 days, Lana moved like someone prepping for a high-stakes presentation. She printed documents, filled pages with handwritten notes, and would occasionally shut her laptop with the kind of discretion people reserve for confidential files. I didn't say a word, just watched, like an outsider quietly observing the logistics of a meeting I was never invited to speak at. By Saturday night, just like she'd scheduled, she rearranged the dining room. The wooden table had been wiped until it gleamed. She set up a small easel, sorted piles of documents into categories, and wore a dark gray blazer like she was about to pitch a major corporate merger. She started by saying that after months of participating in online support groups and reading research on modern marriage, she had a clearer understanding of her own value within the traditional family structure, that she had undervalued her emotional and administrative contributions in the relationship, that it was time to renegotiate roles and obligations so both partners could thrive. I didn't interrupt. I sat and listened to my 8-year marriage being dissected like an outdated business model in need of restructuring. Lana went through each point like she was clicking through PowerPoint slides. First, the division of household chores. According to her chart, I'd now be handling 70% of the cooking, cleaning, laundry, and maintenance. She would focus on strategic vision and long-term direction for the family. I wasn't exactly sure what that entailed, but it didn't seem to involve vacuuming. Next, finances. She proposed taking full control of our joint account and all financial decisions. I'd be allowed to keep a small personal account, referred to as my flexible spending budget, to cover things she deemed non-essential. Then came the social clause. I would be required to attend all her events with friends and colleagues, no exceptions. These relationships, she explained, were crucial to community perception and the growth of our influence network. For personal space, she needed 4 nights a week for recharging and uninterrupted personal development. I could do whatever I liked with that time, as long as it didn't disrupt her peace. And finally, she flipped to the last page. Physical intimacy would happen when she deemed it appropriate. No pressure, no discussion. She would notify me when available. She closed the binder and looked me square in the eyes. "These terms are non-negotiable," she said, in the same tone one might use to announce a new company-wide policy. I nodded. My face gave nothing away, but inside I knew this wasn't a conversation between two spouses anymore. It was a pitch, and she expected me to sign the deal without reading the fine print. I remember asking, almost under my breath, like the words slipped out without my consent, "What if I don't agree?" Lana paused, just for a second, as if the question was scripted, but she hadn't expected it this soon. She said she hoped I'd be reasonable, that she didn't want to resort to restructuring her personal life trajectory. I asked again, softer, but the words hit me like a bell in my skull. What does restructuring your personal life trajectory mean? She said that in today's world, everyone deserves to design a life they feel is healthy, that she'd learned a lot about non-coercive partnerships and personal autonomy within sustainable marriages, that if we couldn't find common ground, perhaps it was best for each of us to grow in separate directions, respectfully. She didn't threaten me, didn't yell, didn't mention divorce. But every word she used was measured, polished, pre-reviewed by the internal legal department of her mind. And they told me one thing loud and clear. If I didn't sign, she already had a plan B. It wouldn't be a messy exit. It would be a quiet retreat, already in motion. And maybe it had started long ago, when I wasn't paying close enough attention. I didn't get angry. I didn't argue. I didn't fight back. I just nodded, like someone reviewing a buyout offer. Like I genuinely believed love could be itemized into charts and renegotiated line by line. Lana seemed pleased I didn't react. She thought I was finally getting it. She didn't realize I was just learning how to listen like an investor preparing to pull out. For the next 5 days, I played the part. Quiet, composed, the reasonable partner she imagined I could be. But behind the kitchen calendar, I started my own draft. Numbers, copies, appointments she never knew about. I met with a lawyer Wednesday morning, not to threaten divorce, just to understand the rules of the game she'd decided we were playing. That night, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. All those old financial folders, backed up every quarter out of habit, suddenly became relevant. I went through everything: savings accounts, stocks, retirement funds, the car in both our names, the mortgage. I built a clean spreadsheet: joint assets, estimated liquidation, equitable distribution. It felt less like a crisis and more like year-end reporting. I wasn't bitter, just precise. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was an organized retreat. Each evening, while she hummed in the kitchen like someone who had just closed a major deal, I sat on the balcony with a cold cup of tea. No phone, no book. Just silence. Signing invisible pages of an exit strategy no one else could see. By Thursday night, I was ready. Not to salvage anything, but to show her I understood the game, and I was no longer interested in playing. I created a new tab: maintenance costs. There I listed more than just numbers: the emotional energy it took to keep pretending, the fatigue of playing the agreeable husband, the way I felt smaller and smaller in my own home. Then I compared it to the expected returns: fake peace, quiet dinners, a thin hope that maybe, Lana would stop being a negotiator and remember how to be a partner. The final number didn't live on the spreadsheet. It sat heavy in my chest, a clarity that settled in like a stone. If this was a business deal, I was bleeding out, emotionally and financially. The next day at lunch, I went to a small branch bank tucked into a quiet shopping center. The clerk asked if I wanted to fully separate from the existing account. I nodded. No explanations. When I signed the paperwork to open my own account, it felt like placing the first brick in a nameless escape route. Not to hide, but to protect the part of myself that still deserved to exist outside of someone else's ledger. That evening, while Lana meditated in the living room, I opened a new tab on my phone. Searched for studio apartments near Riverbend. Close to work. Good light. 5 minutes from a grocery store. I didn't bookmark anything, just looked, trying to imagine a life without Lana in the kitchen every night. Surprisingly, I could picture it. A small space, dustless shelves, a coffee pot that brewed just for me. Friday night, I sat down with my old black notebook, the one I used to plan quarterly goals for my team. This time, I wrote the heading: Exit Strategy, Personal. Under it, 3 columns: financial, legal, emotional. I listed every step like a checklist: return spare keys, close her secondary credit card, inventory divisible assets, call Mark, draft a letter, not to accuse, just to close properly. No one taught me how to divorce, but I've shut down companies, transitioned assets, and preserved decency in chaos before. This would be no different. Saturday night, I flipped through my plan one last time. No edits needed. Everything was in place. Clean, lawful, airtight. I stood up and looked around the kitchen. The spice rack she once organized by color. The chair I built after she said she wanted a reading nook. All of it still there. But none of it said us anymore. I turned off the lights and walked toward my office. The bedroom was already dark. Lana had gone to sleep. No words, no sound. I didn't feel empty. I didn't feel regret. All I felt was this: tomorrow, I'd place my own proposal on the table, not to negotiate, but to end a deal I never signed in the first place. If you're still here, chances are you're like me, unable to walk away from a story full of twists and turns. So, let the next surprises find you more easily. Just hit that subscribe button now. Sunday morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I wiped down the dining table until the wood gleamed, placed a thin folder right in the center, along with a glass of water and a pen. Nothing extravagant, just enough to signal, today isn't just another Sunday. Today is a meeting. Lana came downstairs around 9, still in her beige cotton tee, hair tied up, notebook in hand. She looked like she expected me to be ready with feedback for her restructured marriage proposal. I pointed to the chair across from me and said I had a few thoughts I'd like to share first. She sat down and nodded, the way a CEO might when letting a junior staff member speak before the quarterly review. I opened the folder. I started by thanking her for taking the initiative, for presenting a new model of marriage. I said I appreciated the clarity and fully understood the need to adapt to new contexts, a phrase she herself had used. Then I got to the point. No flourishes, no detours. I opened my laptop and placed it between us. Lana leaned slightly forward, expecting some kind of revised proposal. But this time, she wasn't the only one with a presentation. All right, I said. Let's start with a basic cost-benefit analysis. I turned the screen toward her. On it was a simple comparison chart. Her proposed terms on the left, my assessment of their real-world impact on the right. I pointed to the first line. Here, you're suggesting a reduced contribution on your end toward household responsibilities while increasing my share. From an operational standpoint, this is a textbook case of declining value proposition. When input decreases and output demands rise, that's not improvement. That's a resource imbalance. I saw her smile falter slightly. She steadied herself and replied that I was misinterpreting the strategic value of the new role she was crafting for herself. Actually, I said, I think I understand it pretty well. Which brings me to my counterproposal. I pulled a slim report from my leather bag and laid it flat on the table. It was an efficiency review of our relationship, using the very metrics she had referenced: time allocation, decision-making equity, emotional satisfaction, and mutual respect. After comparing your proposed terms with current market conditions and available alternatives, I've come to a conclusion. This is not an acceptable agreement. She raised an eyebrow. Not acceptable? I nodded, keeping my tone even. The return on investment in this relationship has steadily declined, while the operational costs, both financial and emotional, have spiked exponentially. Our current ROI is negative. For any sane business, that's a clear sign the model is failing. She blinked slowly. Something in her expression began to crack, just a little. I kept going, calm and measured. Your proposed terms significantly increase my workload while stripping away autonomy, transparency, and the quality of our interactions. No rational enterprise would accept such conditions without seriously considering a well-structured exit strategy. She stammered, Maybe we can revise it. We could sit down again, optimize a different version. I shook my head and pulled out one final folder. I'm afraid the negotiation window has closed. She went quiet. I saw her hands tremble just a little. Then I opened the last document, 2 pages, clean and concise, with the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage" italicized at the top. I slid it across the table toward her. "I've decided to terminate the contract." Lana stared at the paper. Her face went pale, lips pressed tight, like she was trying to hold something in before it broke loose. "This is," she whispered. "This is my final response," I said. "Based on performance reviews, growth potential, and long-term risk assessment, I've concluded that continued partnership is no longer a viable option. Just like with any business, sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is shut down before the losses grow deeper." She tried to smile. Just a fragile curve of the mouth that vanished almost instantly. "I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm simply replying, in the very language you chose when you initiated this negotiation." I turned the laptop toward her one last time, this time showing a graph. "I ran a few projections," I said. "One where we continue under your terms, one where we divorce, and one where we coexist under the same roof like silent stakeholders. The second option had short-term volatility, yes, but long-term, it performed best on every metric." In the end, she didn't say anything more. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because deep down, she realized she'd just lost the one thing that can't ever be negotiated in a relationship: willingness. The next 3 days felt like a live workshop on what happens when someone realizes they've shattered the best deal they ever had. Lana started with anger. She called me extreme, accused me of misinterpreting her proposals, said they were only meant to rebalance the relationship. When I didn't bite, she shifted tactics. One by one, she began peeling back her demands, like someone tearing down bricks, desperate to stop a fire they finally realized is closing in. Tuesday morning, she stopped me in the kitchen. I was pouring coffee, my other hand holding the file I needed for an early meeting. She said it was all just an experiment, a communication test, a way to gauge whether we could survive hard conversations together. An experiment, I repeated, eyes still on the lid of my thermos. Charts, documents, non-negotiable terms, a formal ultimatum. Is that the new definition of a test? She didn't answer. That night, when I came home, the scent of grilled meat filled the house. The dining table was dressed up, candles, wine, the light brown Thanksgiving tablecloth we rarely touched. Lana was wearing that old knit dress I once said looked good on her. I hung my coat, glanced around the carefully arranged scene. She said, "I think we should talk about the misunderstanding." I didn't sit. I walked past the table. "There is no misunderstanding," I said. "You made your position clear, and I've made mine. That conversation is over." She followed me up the stairs. "You're being stubborn," she said. "Relationships require compromise." "They do," I replied. "They require compromise. But your proposal didn't contain an ounce of that. It was a list of demands, backed by a soft threat. Follow this, or lose me." She faltered. Her eyes filled. But this time, I didn't step back. I stood on the third step, under the soft hallway light, looked at her the way one might look at a former partner trying to revive a contract that's already expired. "You never thought I'd be the one to walk away, did you?" By Wednesday afternoon, the last mask cracked. Lana showed up at my office right at lunch. No call, no text, just appeared. She was wearing a heavy coat, eyes swollen, standing across my desk like someone asking for an extension on a loan she already knew wouldn't be approved. "I talked to Kayla," she said, voice hoarse, eyes on the floor. "She told me I approached this all wrong, that I shouldn't have turned our marriage into a negotiation." I looked at her. Not angry, just blank. "Your sister helped you realize that ultimatums tend to backfire?" Lana shook her head quickly. "I never said I'd leave. I didn't threaten divorce. I just tried to create a new framework so we could understand each other better." I nodded slightly, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. "I get it. You laid out a list of demands with deadlines and clear consequences. In business, that's the textbook definition of an ultimatum. She stepped closer, reaching across the desk to touch my hand. I pulled it away, quietly opened my drawer, and grabbed another folder. Didn't even need to look at it. I just needed something else to focus on. "Please," she whispered. "I know I messed it all up. But marriage is where forgiveness lives, right?" "No," I replied, eyes still on the papers. "Marriage is where respect lives first. Forgiveness comes after. You approached me like a system to be optimized, not a partner to walk with." She said nothing for a while. Then, I don't even know what happened to me. Those groups, those articles and videos, they all kept telling me I deserved more. I looked at her, still not cold, still not angry, just the kind of clarity that always shows up too late. No one made you print out proposals. No one forced you to schedule a formal negotiation with a husband who used to believe he was loved, not audited. You made that choice. And choices have consequences. Thursday, her mother called. I was at work. Her name lit up the screen, and I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice, familiar, pleading, came through with the same old tone. "Are you sure you're not overreacting? Lana's truly devastated. She knows she made a mistake. I really think you should reconsider." I asked, "Did she tell you what the mistake was?" A pause. She said, "You two had a disagreement about chores." I laughed. Not bitter, just stunned by how perfectly Lana had managed to reduce a power grab into a household task misunderstanding. Her mother's tone was just like Lana's, soft at first, then slipping in a proposal, as if persuasion ran in their DNA. Her original ultimatum had bolded phrases like, "Non-compliance will lead to marriage reevaluation." Now it was being rebranded as a squabble over who should mop. Friday night, the final attempt. I got home late after meeting my lawyer. Lana was waiting in the hallway. The soft light from a side lamp cast long shadows across the wall. "We don't have to file," she said quietly. "We can pretend none of this ever happened." "But it did happen," I said. "You spent days building a case to force me into compliance. You turned emotions into charts, sex into a calendar, and love into a conditional clause. That wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a fully executed plan." "I was stupid," she said. "I got swept up in all that content about women deserving more. I forgot I already had someone willing to give everything." "No," I said, firm now. "What we had was good enough. What you wanted was for me to accept less and still thank you for the privilege." "So this is it?" she asked. Tears falling, but she didn't wipe them. 8 years of marriage gone. Because I asked for too much? No. 8 years of marriage ended because you handed me a demand sheet and started a countdown. You stopped seeing me as someone to understand and started treating me like a project to improve. And in that moment, we both saw it clearly. The irony. She bet our entire marriage on the belief that I needed her, more than she needed me. She was wrong. 6 months later, I ran into Lana at a small grocery store on the south side of the city. I was browsing new coffee blends when I looked up and saw her one aisle over, hair tied up hastily, holding a basket, her eyes briefly lost until they landed on me. She smiled first, a tight, distant smile that never reached her eyes. "How have you been?" she asked. I nodded. "Better than expected." She nodded back, glanced down at the floor, then looked up again. "I've been focusing on myself. Personal growth. The same phrase that once opened the cracks in our marriage." I didn't respond, just smiled faintly. She hesitated. "Are you seeing anyone?" I nodded. "I am. I'm with someone now." Her face dropped, quick and raw, no armor to soften the blow. "Is it serious?" "Very. She's amazing. We're talking about moving in together." I didn't add that this relationship felt completely different. That the woman I'm with understands love is collaboration, not negotiation. That when she wants to talk, she starts with, "Can we sit down and talk?" Not, "Here's what I need you to agree to." "That's fast," Lana said, trying to sound casual. But I could hear the bitterness underneath. When you know what you need, you don't waste time, I replied softly. She stood still for a moment, probably wrestling with the things she wanted to say and the things she knew she shouldn't. Then she exhaled. I've learned a lot from what happened between us. I nodded. I'm glad. That's what matters. Do you ever think, if I had done things differently, we could have made it? I paused, set the box of coffee back on the shelf, looked her in the eyes, not with blame, just truth. I think you showed me exactly who you were the moment you thought you had the power. Even if I'd agreed back then, I'm certain you would have just kept pushing for more. That wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. She narrowed her eyes. You mean someone like me? Someone who treats a relationship like a scoreboard, where one person only wins if the other loses. You didn't want to fix the marriage. You wanted to upgrade your position in it, at my expense. She didn't say anything. Her eyes were red, but the tears didn't fall. I hope you find what you're looking for, she said quietly. I smiled. And I hope you do too. But just remember, real love and real respect can't be negotiated. I turned to leave. Behind me, her voice followed. I know you loved me once. I turned back one last time. I believe you loved me too. But you loved the idea of controlling me more. 3 months after that encounter, I proposed to my girlfriend. She said yes immediately. There were tears in her eyes, but the kind that only come from joy. No negotiations, no proposals in folders, just a yes and a hug that said everything words didn't have to. The difference was undeniable. Lana saw relationships as a space to bargain. This woman, she treats it as something to nurture, not leverage. When Lana gave me her ultimatum, she wanted me to prove I was worth staying with. The woman I'm with now spends every single day showing me she's worth staying for. She doesn't try to win. She wants to walk beside me. And I've realized, once you've loved the wrong person, and then loved the right one, you never confuse the two again. Last I heard, Lana was still single, still sharing articles about deserving better, still hoping someone would one day accept her terms. Some people spend their whole lives negotiating happiness, instead of building it with someone. Not me. I chose to build, and it's the best decision I've ever made. Thank you for watching until the end. With every subscription, you're not only helping the channel grow, you're also becoming part of the journey to uncover the hidden truths behind seemingly perfect marriages. Don't miss out.